The GoPro Hero 7 Black, 2 weeks later. Is it the best action camera made, or is it a hot pile of garbage? Let's find out. What's up everyone, I'm the Everyday Dad, and if I can figure it out, you can figure it out. So here we are. It has been 2 weeks, and I've used the snot out of this action camera. It's come with me everywhere, from campouts, to mountain biking, to video making, to all sorts of things. This camera has basically been attached to my hip. Now it's time to find out if this oddly shaped growth on my hip is worth getting for you. Wow, that sounds terrible. Halloween jokes, be prepared for them. I'm recording this on Halloween. In case this is your first video about the GoPro Hero 7 Black, let's quickly cover the basic specs so we all have a shared understanding when I start praising and poo-pooing the camera here in just a little bit. The GoPro Hero 7 Black is an action camera that you'd be forgiven for thinking came out in 2016. And that's mainly because it has the exact same body as the Hero 5. Though it does have a darker coating with a huge number 7 on the side. That's really helpful for those of us with vision impairments. I actually really like that because the 5 and the 6 were so similar, it was really hard to tell them apart. So you really know which one you have when you pick this one up. The 7 Black can record up to 4K 60 frames per second and 1080p 240 frames per second. But the coolest part about the video specs is it can do 4K 60 frames per second with its new hyper smooth stabilization. Speaking of which, the Hero 7 Black has hyper smooth stabilization, which is legitimate. It's seriously fantastic. Back to me real quick. Let's cut from the B-roll. When the Hero 7 was announced and we saw the video specs inside of it, I almost fell asleep. I mean, it was seriously, there isn't very many upgrades from the 6 to the 7 except the hyper smooth stabilization. And I really thought that was lame until I started using the camera. The hyper smooth stabilization changes how cameras can be used, seriously. And back to me again for a second. Yes, a fully balanced gimbal will do better than the electronic image stabilization inside of the Hero 7. It really will. But it won't do that much better, and it's definitely not good enough for me to warrant carrying around a gimbal ever again. So I still stand by initial video title that the Hero 7, for all intents and purposes, has killed the gimbal. Okay, back to the specs. The Hero 7 can also do super photo, which, I mean, that looks really cool from all the promotional shots, but I have yet to actually get it working. Physically, it's a GoPro. It looks like a GoPro, and it works like every other GoPro you've ever used. If you've used a GoPro, hey, congratulations, you've used this. I would ding GoPro here for not having anything new or exciting, but darn it, their body design is actually like the pinnacle of evolution for action cameras. Maybe in the future, if we move up to 1-inch sensor cameras, please, we'll start dealing with different shaped cameras, but for now, this is it. Now, we've already covered the pillars of action in my original video, so if you want a more in-depth look at what the camera can do, check that out. You can find it here. Ding! But for today, let's talk about what I both like and dislike about the camera after 2 weeks of solid use. Let's start off with the likes because I actually really like this camera. First off, let's talk about my absolute favorite part about this darn camera, and that should be no surprise, it's the stabilization. The hyper smooth stabilization is so darn good, and I'm not kidding or talking in too much hyperbole. I mean, a little bit, but when I say it's really changed how I will use any camera. I hate shaky footage, and I personally would rather have bad quality stable video than good quality shaky video. It's like audio. You can give up a lot in the image quality department, but shakiness and bad audio will kill a shot. It really, really will. So when you can just handhold a camera at 4K 60 or 1080p 120 and get whatever you want with minimal shake, that changes things a whole bunch. If you use them like gimbals, I mean, this isn't going to change your mind, but I will never use a gimbal again with the Hero 7 Black. Okay, enough about the stabilization, Ted. It's great though. Next up is something that's almost as high up as stabilization, and that's audio. Now, I don't actually know how GoPro did it. They probably changed their recording mixes internal inside the camera, but the audio coming out of the Hero 7 is pretty darn good, especially, the human voice. Okay, and here we are outdoors doing a real quick GoPro Hero 7 Black vlogging test, where we're just kind of talking at the camera. We're gonna wander around a little bit. You'll notice two things. The image quality, well, So we had some issues with the image quality. I mentioned this a little bit later in the video, but you gotta be really careful about the auto ISO settings on the GoPro Hero 7 Black. But like we've mentioned, one of the great things about these GoPros is just how easy they are to pick them up and take them with you. Like I just love how they just work. The stabilization is fantastic. I mean, you can see it right now. This is currently being handheld. It's not in a gimbal or anything. The stabilization on the Hero 7 is legitimate. And it's just super useful. I really think that the Hero 7 Black is gonna turn into my full-time vlogging camera. I don't really ever vlog. I just do these little tests out here, but this camera just fits so many things in right. The image quality is awesome. The stabilization is next level. You just gotta, the auto ISO, like you gotta pare it down. Like it's set to like 1600 or 3200 off the bat. That's way, way too high. It will ruin your footage. I currently have it set to minimum 100 ISO, maximum 400 ISO, and that seems to be working for me pretty well. Okay, all right, let's do a... See, look, you can even vlog while running. I really, really like this camera. Okay, I'm going for my run. You guys enjoy the rest of the video. To the run! The Hero 5, 6, and 2018 were pretty terrible when it came to audio, and that's in part due to it being contained in a, brand new, at the time, waterproof camera case. But the audio inside of the Hero 7 Black is clean and clear, and really, when the audio combined with the stabilization makes this one of the, if not the best small camera out there for vlogging. True, you can't see yourself, but it is wide enough and everything is in focus enough that it really doesn't matter. So long as the camera is pointed in the general direction, you will get your shot. Now, if you need to get something far away, or you don't like being super wide all the time, or you want something with a little shallower depth of field, then you will, yes, need a different camera. I mean, that's just how it goes. Thirdly, and just as important, if not as sexy as the other two, stability. No, I'm not talking about the video stabilization this time. I mean actual software stability. On the Hero 5 and the Hero 6, still on the Hero 6 to this day, I had a lot of software issues. It was so bad on the 6, I told people not to buy it for almost 6 months until it got sorted out. It's mostly sorted out now. But I have yet to have either an issue with SD cards, lost footage, needing to pull the battery, anything, knock on wood. So far with the 7 Black, it might be the most stable GoPro I've ever used. Again, that isn't as cool as new features, but it is so important for me using an action camera that really functions. But even though it's an awesome action camera, nothing in this world is perfect, and there are some things about the Hero 7 Black that I don't like. So bring out the dead. Again, I'm recording this on Halloween. My first major dislike is when you're using ProTune, the preset ISO max is so high, it renders the footage useless, even when you're in well-lit situations. Yes, you can change this, but it was so aggressive at first that I thought the footage coming out of the camera was garbage with how much noise I was getting and just how terrible everything looked in general. Eventually I set my max ISO to 400 and it looks so much better. You can also keep it in auto mode all the time, but I like having a little more control over my footage, so I keep this thing in ProTune 90% of the time. So you've got to watch out for that ISO max. Oddly enough, another problem I'm having is also with ProTune. When I try to manually set the shutter speed to follow the 180-degree rule, shutter speed twice your frame rate, I get some pretty serious stabilization problems. It gets this weird jerky warping thing that happens, and it looks an awful lot like a cell phone camera when it's set inside of a gimbal. All that warping that's just terrible. The problem does clear right up when I put the shutter speed back to auto, but it would be nice to feel a little more confident in the manual control of the GoPro 7. Now, this next one isn't really an issue for me personally because I don't use action cameras in low light ever, but I've seen videos and comments about people having this jerky stabilization issue that I just talked about during periods of low light. Again, that's not something I've seen, but with so many people having the issues, I do assume it's a real problem because of the way the stabilization works in here. It's got an algorithm that's determining where the stabilization needs to go, and I assume in low light it's not able to work as well. And the last real negative I have about the Hero 7 Black, and it's more of a personal issue, but it's the new user interface. Back in the original video, I assumed this was something I would grow used to after using the camera for a while, but I really haven't. maybe it will take longer than 2 weeks, but I just do not like how the frame rates and the resolutions are selected in this camera. I mean, I just really don't. And that, yes, that is a personal problem I have with the camera, and you might be fine depending on which version of GoPro's interface you like. You might like the 5 better, you might like the 7 better. That's a really personal choice. So what, right? So should you get a GoPro Hero 7 Black? If you are looking to get one of the best stabilized action cameras on the market today, I would absolutely recommend the Hero 7 Black. I think the image quality is great. It's easy to use, the stabilization is next level, the audio is surprisingly good, and it is just a fantastic all-in-one package that I like way more than I thought I would. But if you're not looking to spend that much money and you're looking to get more of a budget option, I'd go with the Hero 5 Black because the Hero 7 White is garbage, and no one should ever buy that unless they're making videos about crushing it with a mountain bike. I'm just saying.